It's strange how you can be in a room full of people and still feel like the least real thing there. Warehouse 19, the loft where our startup's creative team held its Thursday night rituals, was practically vibrating with energy. Every week someone brought in local beer, an intern DJ'd, and a few senior leads pretended they weren't calculating Q4 budget cuts in the back of their minds. The lights were always dim enough to feel casual, but just bright enough to make sure you didn't confuse team bonding with a party. Concrete floors, high ceilings, lots of whiteboards no one erased. A modern chapel for corporate optimism. Jenna stood in the middle of it like she was born to. She had that presence, never needed a mic, but everyone listened anyway. She didn't manage the team, but people followed her like she did. I used to think it was charisma. Now I'm not so sure. I was by the drink station, nursing a cola I'd poured into a tumbler to avoid the usual "you're not drinking?" questions. Jenna didn't even look at me when she said it. She was responding to a light question from Joel about whether the SEO work could affect our visual assets. And without skipping a beat, she fired, "Mark still thinks SEO is an MRI." It landed like a well-timed punchline. The pause, then laughter, applause, even a few people tapping their glasses on the table like they were at a comedy club. I felt something cold press down on my shoulders. I let out a little chuckle. The polite kind. Enough to say, I can take a joke. But it was one of those moments where the laugh doesn't actually reach your face, or your chest, or anywhere remotely human. I looked around the room. No one else seemed uncomfortable. Not Joel, who was smirking into his IPA. Not Tara, who had leaned forward like she wanted to write the line down. Not even Ben, the guy who still signs emails with cheers, and usually defaults to Switzerland in any social tension. Jenna was already turning her attention elsewhere, sipping from her cider and gesturing wide with her free hand, like she was keeping the air itself entertained. I checked my phone. 1948. And then I just walked out. Quietly. No coat grab, no dramatic sigh. Just slipped past the frosted glass meeting room, down the narrow hallway, and out into the parking lot. The cold outside was jarring. Not painful, but enough to remind me I was still made of skin. I didn't even really know why I was leaving, at least not right away. I told myself I just needed air. But the truth had been building for weeks, maybe months. That moment wasn't a surprise. It was a confirmation. Standing by the curb, I kept my phone in my palm and watched the time. I gave it 5 minutes. If she didn't message me by then, maybe that would be all I needed to know. She messaged at 19:52. "Come back." It was just humor Redheart. Then at 19:54. "Mark." I didn't reply. Instead, I looked up at the building. From where I stood, I could see silhouettes moving against the wide factory windows. Laughter still leaked through the walls in waves. I imagined her inside, glancing at her phone, then shrugging and going back to the crowd. Maybe someone else had already taken my spot in the circle. Someone who didn't still think SEO is an MRI. The joke wasn't even clever. It was low-hanging fruit, really. But it stuck with me not because it was mean, but because it wasn't. It was the kind of joke people make when they've already stopped taking you seriously. When they've already moved past caring how you feel about it. When you're no longer in the room even when you're standing right there. There's a difference between being teased and being dismissed. That line? It had been crossed long before tonight. This was just the first time I had the clarity to see it. I started walking the perimeter of the parking lot. Slow steps. No real destination. Just thinking. Trying to trace when things started changing. It used to be different between us. I wasn't just some guy in the background. There were nights when Jenna and I would close this place down, sitting on the floor with takeout between us, trading ideas about brand identity and content strategy like we were building something sacred. We joked back then too. But it wasn't like this. It wasn't detached. There was warmth. She'd touch my hand when she laughed, lean into my shoulder when the lights flickered after 10 p.m. We weren't official, never put a label on it. But there was something. A mutual orbit. Or at least I thought so. But over the past few months, that orbit broke. Conversations turned into bullet points. Eye contact faded. Her laugh changed, got more theatrical, less genuine. Like it was being performed for someone else. And I guess it was. I leaned against the hood of my car, still holding the glass of cola like it was something grounding. I should have gone home, but part of me was waiting for her to come outside, to follow me, not just text, but actually come out and say, "Hey, that was too far. I'm sorry." She didn't. My phone buzzed again. Another message from her. "It wasn't about you. Just a dumb joke. Don't be sensitive." There it was. The classic move, minimizing my reaction. Turning discomfort into weakness. A neat little role reversal where I was the one ruining the mood. I locked my phone without replying and set it down beside me on the hood. The wind picked up slightly, sending a few loose leaves scuttling across the lot. The sky was turning that pale orange-pink that happens when the city lights start to blend with dusk. Beautiful in a way I didn't have words for. Jenna used to find words for things like that. Now I wasn't sure what she saw. I waited out there until the laughter inside faded to just bass thumps and clinking glass. A couple people filtered out. Tara and Joel walked past me without noticing I was even there. That felt right. That's how it had been lately anyway. I might as well have been invisible. When I finally got in the car, the seat was cold, and the silence felt good. Not peaceful exactly, but clean. Like I could think without running every thought past someone else's approval first. I pulled out of the lot without turning on the music. Just drove through familiar streets, letting my thoughts unravel one by one. Somewhere between the second stoplight and the on-ramp, I realized something. I wasn't angry. Not really. I was done. Not just with the evening, but with the role I'd been playing. The quiet guy. The joke sponge. The one who laughs to keep things easy. The one who stays behind after everyone else goes home. I was tired of taking up less space just to make others more comfortable. Back at home, the apartment felt sterile. Too quiet. Too clean. Jenna's stuff was scattered across the counter. Her water bottle. Her scarf from this morning. Her open laptop. I stood in the doorway, taking it all in like a stranger. Eventually, I sat down on the couch, drink still in hand, and scrolled through her messages again. No new ones. That felt like the most honest part of the night. The next morning, Jenna slid into the kitchen like nothing had happened. Her phone was already in her hand, face tilted just out of my view, thumb flicking through some feed. She was wearing one of her oversized button-ups, the one she always accidentally ended up with after work nights. Hair in a loose bun, fresh mascara. Her tone was breezy. "Morning," she said, pouring coffee like we hadn't slept in separate rooms last night. Her by choice, me by inertia. I didn't say anything right away. I watched how she stirred in her almond milk, 2 turns counterclockwise. Same as always, but the ritual felt hollow now, like a stage direction she'd memorized. Familiarity without int asterisk Macy. She glanced at me, her voice casual. "You disappeared early last night." "I did," I replied, keeping my tone flat. She waited, expecting me to follow up with a joke or a sheepish grin or anything that made it easy for her to smooth over. When I didn't, she raised an eyebrow and leaned on the counter. "Are you still upset about the loft thing?" she asked. I blinked. "Are you still pretending it didn't bother me?" That earned a little sigh. The "you're being dramatic" sigh. Her signature. "Mark, it was a joke. Lighten up." People laughed, and I don't actually think you're clueless. "I'm not upset about what you think," I said. "I'm upset that you said it like you knew I wouldn't say anything." That stopped her for half a beat, but then the wall went back up. "Well, you didn't." She turned back to her phone, conversation done in her mind. I left for work earlier than usual that day. I needed to get out of that apartment before it swallowed me whole. My office cube suddenly felt more honest than home did. The muted tones. The predictable hum of keyboards. At least the disconnection there was mutual. But even buried under analytics dashboards and Slack messages, my brain kept circling the same track. When exactly did I become part of the background? It wasn't just last night. There had been signs, small things I told myself not to take personally. The way her texts started using periods instead of emojis. How "love you" became "you too." The silences that used to be comfortable now felt strategic. Her laughter especially had changed. That used to be my favorite sound. It was real and messy and uncontrolled. But now it came in short, rehearsed bursts, perfectly timed and slightly exaggerated. Like punctuation in someone else's story. And she hadn't laughed like that with me in a long time. At home, her touch had gone missing. I couldn't remember the last time she reached for my hand without prompting. Her side of the bed used to lean into mine. Now, it clung to the far edge like the mattress had grown an invisible fence. It got to the point where even her stories felt distant. She used to come home animated, breathless from whatever drama had unfolded at work. Inside jokes, weird clients, the vending machine conspiracy. But lately, it was all summaries, sterile reports. Yeah, it was fine. Nothing really happened. Just a meeting. Her voice held less color each time, like she was running our marriage on power-saving mode. I tried to lean in. I cooked dinner. I sent her a Spotify playlist of songs that reminded me of our early road trips. I left her notes on the fridge. No reaction. No acknowledgement. Just pass-through energy. She saw me, but she didn't see me. At one point, I brought up the idea of a weekend getaway. I suggested a cabin we'd visited years ago. The one where we danced barefoot on the porch in October air. Jenna smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Let's circle back, she said, like I was proposing a marketing strategy. She'd been in silent mode ever since. And me? I started keeping track. I watched how often she left the room when I entered. I counted the number of texts she sent during dinner. I noticed how she only looked up from her screen when I stopped speaking, not when I started. It was subtle, but it was constant. The slow fade, the quiet shutout, like I'd become the living version of airplane mode, present but not connected. I mentioned this once to her, that it felt like I was being tuned out. Her response? You're overthinking again. I wish I was. God, I wish I was. I started questioning myself. Was I boring now? Too predictable? Was she just stressed and I was projecting? Maybe I should have been working out more. Maybe I should have changed jobs. Maybe it was me. Maybe I was the one who'd gone dull and she was too kind to say it. But kindness doesn't look like that. Kindness doesn't erase you while pretending to hold your hand. The breaking point, if I had to name one, came on a Tuesday. I came home early and found her on the phone. She didn't hear me come in. I was in the hallway, frozen, listening to the cadence of her voice. Not the words, just the tone. It was different, light, warm, playful. I stood there for a full 30 seconds before she heard the door and called out, "Hey babe, that you?" Her voice switched, like flipping a light switch from color to grayscale. In that moment, I knew something I didn't want to know, and I didn't even have proof yet. Later that night, I asked her, "You've been busy lately. You seeing someone at work?" It was an honest question. Direct. My voice didn't accuse. But she flinched barely, but I saw it. Then came the look. That careful narrowing of the eyes. She crossed her arms, head tilted just slightly. "You seriously think I'd cheat on you?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know what I thought. I only knew how I felt. Like a movie extra in my own life. She scoffed. "This is getting exhausting, Mark." And there it was again, my fault. My suspicions, my insecurities. Her disappearing act wasn't a betrayal. It was a consequence of my emotional weight. She went to bed early that night. I stayed up and stared at the wall for 3 hours. We stopped saying goodnight after that. A few days later, she started scheduling strategic dinners for work. She always called them that. As if the word strategic could explain why she left the apartment dressed like she was headed to a rooftop lounge instead of a client debrief. I asked if she wanted company once. She said it'd be distracting. Next time, she added. But there was never a next time. Even our fights lost their shape. We didn't yell. There were no blow-ups. Just tiny dismissals. Gaslighting in lowercase letters. I'd say something like, "You've been distant," and she'd reply, "You're being paranoid." A script perfectly memorized. Nothing dramatic, just quiet erosion. I started eating alone more. She always had a reason. A late train, a long call, a sudden need for headspace. I stopped asking after a while. stopped offering dinner, stopped leaving notes, stopped expecting a kiss goodbye. I stopped, and she didn't notice. It started with the suitcase. The one she kept on the top shelf of our closet. The one that had always been for quick trips. I hadn't touched it in years. But that night, the house felt too quiet, and I was tired of waiting for answers that wouldn't come in words. I didn't go looking for proof exactly. Proof implies you already know the crime. I was just restless, curious about what silence hides. When I pulled the suitcase down, it gave a soft thud against the bed, lighter than I expected. I unzipped it halfway and froze. Inside, there was a shoebox, not the original use for shoes kind. More like the kind you hide things in when you don't want them to look hidden. A plain gray lid. No labels. Inside, on top, was a folded scarf I didn't recognize. Beneath it, a phone. Sleek. Face down. My hands felt numb as I picked it up. It was old, maybe a model or two behind her current one. I pressed the power button. Nothing. Then I noticed it airplane mode. My thumb hesitated. For a moment, I thought about putting it back, pretending I'd never seen it, pretending ignorance was still an option. Then I swiped down and toggled airplane mode off. The screen lit up, and the Wi-Fi connected immediately, our home network. And there it was, a cascade of notifications, messages, missed calls, a string of blue and gray bubbles under one name, Drew. At first, I thought maybe it was a colleague, a friend, someone from her old project teams. But then I opened the thread. The first thing that hit me wasn't a photo or a confession. It was tone. The tone of someone unguarded. The tone she used to have with me. Scrolling, my eyes locked onto a recent message from him. He's not a problem. Stop worrying. Her reply, an hour later. You're sure? He's been acting weird. Followed by a laughing emoji. My stomach turned. He's not a problem. I was the he, the non-problem, the background noise. I kept scrolling, each message another crack in the floorboards. A joke about me mispronouncing croissant. Comment about my playlists. A photo of their lunch, captioned, our secret client meeting. And then an image attachment. A beach lodge website. The message above it read, Seaglass this weekend? Booked under my name winking face. The emoji, the casual tone, it all felt too familiar. Like I just stumbled into a conversation between strangers who'd been living in my house while I was out. I sat there on the bed, the phone still warm in my hand, staring at her name and his. My heart wasn't racing, it was sinking, heavy, slow. Every detail I'd ignored over the past months came rushing back. Her sudden weekend trainings, the way she'd changed her lock screen, the late-night laughter in another room. She'd been careful, not careful enough. I thought of confronting her right then, marching downstairs, holding up the phone, demanding every lie at once. But something inside me resisted. Not rage, strategy. I didn't want to be the man who yells and gets gaslit into confusion. I wanted to know, to see it. I put the phone down and opened her planner on the nightstand. Jenna loved paper calendars. She said digital ones felt too impersonal. I flipped through the pages until I found it. A neat little note written in her handwriting. Friday through Sunday. Seaglass Lodge, Q2 brainstorm. Of course she'd disguise it as work. My breath steadied. My anger sharpened. I took a photo of the note, of the messages, of the hotel listing. Evidence neat and time-stamped. When she came home later, I was sitting in the dark living room. She dropped her bag by the door, humming to herself. Hey, she said, startled when she noticed me. Didn't hear you get home. I studied her face. Calm, polished, a mask she didn't even realize she was still wearing. Who's Drew? I asked. Her eyes flickered. Just once. Barely noticeable, but I saw it. That micropause. Drew? She repeated, feigning confusion. Oh, from the analytics team. Why? Because he booked Seaglass Lodge this weekend. Under your name. Silence. Long enough for the air between us to harden. Then she laughed, a brittle sound. You've been going through my stuff? No, I said quietly. Your stuff fell into mine. Her expression changed: anger, defense, something else. You're overreacting. It's a retreat. Half the team's going. Then you won't mind showing me the itinerary. Her mouth opened, then closed again. Forget it, she muttered, grabbing her bag and heading toward the bedroom. Jenna, I called after her. Don't lie to me. Not now. She didn't turn around. The bedroom door clicked shut. I sat there, staring at the blank TV screen. Her reflection moved faintly in it as she paced inside the room, the shape of someone rehearsing what to say next. When she came out 10 minutes later, she looked composed again. Phone in hand. Mark, she began, tone softened. I'm sorry. You're right. I should have told you. Drew and I have been working on a campaign, and we just needed quiet space to finish the proposal. That's it. I almost wanted to believe her. Almost. But I'd already seen the truth. The line, he's not a problem. The laughing emoji. The lodge booking. She crossed her arms when I didn't respond. You don't trust me, she said. That's the real issue here. No, Jenna. The issue is that I do, and you've been nizing it. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing her laughter in the loft, echoing off the concrete walls, followed by that single cruel sentence. He's not a problem. Around midnight, I went back to the suitcase. The phone was still there, charging quietly on her side of the bed. Notifications blinked in the dark. One new message. Drew, room 214. Can't wait to see you. The timestamp, 11:57 p.m. And her reply, sent 30 seconds later. Same. Counting down. I turned the phone off. No rage this time. Just clarity. Cold and exact. When the screen went black, her face glowed faintly in the reflection. Peaceful. Asleep. She looked like someone dreaming of another life. I whispered, I hope he's worth it. But I wasn't talking to her. I was talking to myself, to the version of me who still thought love was enough to make people stay. I put the phone back in the box, zipped the suitcase shut, and set it neatly where it had been. Tomorrow would come, and with it a new kind of morning. A morning where I would stop being the problem, and start being the answer. There's a point when pain stops screaming and starts planning. The morning after finding the phone, I woke up with that kind of quiet. The kind that isn't peace but precision. I made coffee, sat at the table, and stared at Jenna's planner again. Sea Glass Lodge. The ink curved like a secret she thought would stay safe inside paper. I took another photo. All day at work, I functioned on autopilot: emails, meetings, polite nods. But under it all, a new pulse had started beating. You will know, and you will not be crazy for knowing. Friday came too fast. Jenna dressed carefully, the way people do when they want to look effortless. Jeans, white shirt, the faint scent of ocean salt perfume. She kissed me on the cheek, first time in weeks, and said, Don't wait up. I smiled and said, Safe trip. The second she left, I was already in motion. Her planner had a small folded receipt tucked under the sea glass note. Reservation confirmation. It listed the address, check-in time, and, most importantly, the lodge's phone number. I called. My voice stayed steady. Hi, this is Mark. I'm confirming a booking for Jenna Foster. Just making sure she checked in all right. The clerk hesitated. Oh yes, Ms. Foster arrived about half an hour ago. She's in cabin 7 with Mr. Drew. That's fine, I interrupted. Thank you. My hand didn't shake until after I hung up. I didn't drive there immediately. Not yet. I waited until dusk, when the light would blur and cameras wouldn't flash too obviously. On the way, I stopped by a convenience store for batteries and coffee. My reflection in the window looked unfamiliar. Calm. Maybe too calm. The Sea Glass Lodge sat near the coast, surrounded by pine trees and glass balconies, pretending to be rustic. Couples walked hand in hand toward the restaurant area, the sound of waves hiding their laughter. I parked down the road, out of sight, and walked the rest of the way, camera in my jacket pocket. Cabin 7 was easy to spot. Curtains drawn, soft golden light inside. I crouched behind a hedge, half ashamed, half electrified. Through the small gap between curtains, I saw her silhouette, Jenna, pouring wine into 2 glasses. A man's hand brushed hers. She didn't pull away. She laughed. That same new laugh, lighter and practiced. Clicked once. The sound was tiny but final. Another photo as they sat close on the couch. Another when she leaned forward, her hand on his knee. Each click felt like an incision, precise, irreversible. Proof. I left before I saw too much. Some dignity isn't worth keeping, but some is. On the drive back, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just thought about all the tiny moments that had led to this. The missed dinners, the hollow smiles, the excuses polished until they sounded professional. Strategic dinner. Team retreat. Brainstorm weekend. All synonyms for erasure. By the time I reached the city, a new thought had taken root. She humiliated you in public. You'll end it the same way. Not revenge exactly, just symmetry. That Monday, she returned home glowing with post-weekend serenity. It went great, she said, unpacking slowly. You should have seen the views. I bet I will, I murmured. She didn't catch it. That evening, my plan began. I called a friend, Liam, who bartended at Bar 10, the place where Jenna's team usually met after work. I told him I needed a favor. Just help me play a few photos on the bar's slideshow tomorrow night, I said. No questions. Liam hesitated but agreed. He'd seen enough of Jenna's networking nights to suspect what was coming. The next day, she texted me around 5. Going for drinks with the team. Don't wait up, red heart. The heart felt like punctuation on a lie. I arrived at Bar 10 20 minutes later, alone, hood up, slipping into a corner booth. The place buzzed. After-work chatter, glass clinks, music soft enough not to interrupt gossip. Jenna stood at the bar, Drew beside her, laughing like someone auditioning for happiness. Liam caught my eye and gave the smallest nod. Then the screens, usually looping ads for upcoming events, shifted. First photo, Sea Glass Lodge, its name shining across a glass balcony. Second photo, Jenna, unmistakable even in silhouette, wine glass raised toward Drew. Third photo, the booking receipt, crisp and time-stamped. For 3 long seconds, the room stayed frozen. The sound died. You could hear the carbonation in someone's drink fizzing. Jenna turned slowly, her face drained of color. Drew looked at her, then at the screen, then at me. I stood up, calm. No shouting, no theatrics, just clarity. This, I said, loud enough for the tables nearby, is what transparency looks like. Someone gasped. Someone else muttered, "Oh my God!" Jenna's lips moved, but no sound came. She stepped forward, eyes wide, whispering, "Mark, please." I raised a hand. "Don't. You've already said enough." She froze, tears rising but trapped, like even they were too embarrassed to show themselves. Drew tried to speak, but the bartender's *T him a look sharp enough to cut. I turned to Liam and gave a small nod. The images faded. Music resumed, but quieter, cautious. And then I walked out. Not quickly, not dramatically. Just walked, one step at a time, through the front door into cool night air. Behind me, I heard someone call my name, her voice, cracking, but I didn't turn around. Outside, I leaned against the brick wall, letting the air hit my face. The city noise folded around me like a tide. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt light. Not happy, but light. When I got home, I put the camera on the table. No triumph, no regret. Just evidence. Proof that I hadn't imagined the distance. Proof that my instincts weren't paranoia. Proof that love, when mishandled long enough, curdles into performance. That night, Jenna didn't come home. I didn't text her. Didn't need to. The silence said everything words couldn't. Sometime after midnight, my phone buzzed. One message from an unknown number. "You didn't have to do that." I typed a reply and deleted it before sending. What could I say? You didn't have to either. I set the phone face down. Let the darkness take its shape. Tomorrow I'd start packing. Not because she'd asked me to, because I'd already left, hours ago at 1948 without realizing it, back when her joke made everyone laugh but me. I thought after what happened at the bar, after the screen, the silence, and the walkout, things might settle. That the truth, dragged into the light, would finally stop moving. But betrayal has an echo. It doesn't die quietly. It lingers. It multiplies. And sometimes it sends you an email. The message hit my inbox the following Thursday, buried between project reports and lunch polls. It was a shared drive link labeled Q4 Messaging Sprint. Routine stuff, but it came from the internal comms team, one I didn't interact with often. I clicked it absently. Habit, not curiosity. Inside was a slide deck. Bright colors. Corporate optimism. The kind of thing Jenna used to call performance art with bullet points. Slide 12 hit me like a punch. It was part of a section called Personas, Stakeholder Influence Map. There I was, not by name, but by photo. Blurry. Cropped from a team lunch, me mid-bite, mid-blink. Looking like an afterthought. Underneath it, people not worth persuading. My stomach dropped. My chest went hollow. I zoomed in just to make sure it wasn't someone else. It wasn't. It was me. My face, flattened into a slide like a used napkin. To the right of the image were reactions. Internal feedback. Little comment bubbles from the team. In one of them was Jenna's profile photo, smiling like she had no idea she was being watched. Her comment? Just an emoji. The upside-down face. That symbol people use when they want to shrug and laugh at the same time. As if to say, oh well, he's harmless. A smirk in punctuation form. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. My mouse hovered over the reply bubble. I could have typed something, called it out, forwarded it to HR. But what would I say? That my wife, no, ex-wife in training, had not only erased me at home but had annotated my irrelevance at work? The silence I felt in meetings now had a face. My own, pixelated and pitted. I didn't write anything. I just closed the tab. Later that day, I passed Jenna in the hallway. She was laughing with someone from sales, holding her laptop, a coffee, and a smile she probably wore the entire weekend with Drew. She didn't even flinch when we locked eyes. She just nodded, like I was an old client who'd once overpaid. That was when I made up my mind. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even grief anymore. It was detachment. The kind people warned you about. The kind you earned. That night, I cleaned our bedroom. I took everything she hadn't already claimed. Shared books, trip souvenirs, random cards, and boxed them. Not to throw away, just to remove, like you'd clear a room after a flood. Then I opened the top drawer of my desk. Inside was a small black ring box. I bought it months ago. We were supposed to do a vow renewal. Not publicly, just us. An idea I had after our 8th anniversary. Something quiet, sincere. I'd picked out a ring that mirrored her original band, but with a small sea glass stone. She always loved sea glass. Funny, in a different timeline, she might have worn that ring to the same lodge. I opened the box one last time. The ring caught the light like it didn't know what had happened. Then I walked into the bedroom, placed the box gently on her pillow, and took a step back. One last gift. One last sentence. But not for her. For myself. I said, I was willing. You weren't. No note. No post-it. No explanation. Just the box and the bed she used to share with a version of me that still believed in her. I slept on the couch. In the morning, she stood in the doorway, still in her robe, holding the ring box like it might bite her. She didn't say anything. Neither did I. She went back into the bedroom and closed the door. I heard her sit down. I imagined her staring at it. Imagined her wondering how long I'd been gone before she noticed. By then, I was already packing. Just the essentials. A bag, my laptop, a few clothes, my notebooks. I wasn't running. I was relocating. From her narrative to my own. I didn't slam anything. I didn't yell. I didn't demand an apology. I'd already gotten the only answer I needed. I was not worth persuading. Fine. Let her explain that to the echo of me in the apartment. I left her one last thing, taped to the back of the front door. It wasn't dramatic, just a quote I'd scribbled months ago in a moment of optimism. Be somewhere you don't have to be explained. I figured it belonged more to my future than to our past. I locked the door behind me without a sound. She left a note and a link. No excuses, just a folder of motel photos, her face distant in each. An audio file, her voice in a whisper. Don't call me that. I'm not who I pretend to be next to you. The next morning, half the closet was empty. Keys on the table. A sticky note. Please don't stop choosing yourself. No goodbye. Just her absence, tidy and total. 6 months passed. I learned how to be alone without being lost. Cooked for myself. Took night classes in writing and photography. At the library, I met Lily, quiet, kind, unhurried. At a small reading, I shared my story. Said sometimes leaving is how we finally arrive. She squeezed my hand. For the first time, the seat beside me wasn't just filled. It was mine.